dance, and your daddy whipped you. How old do you think you were?
About 13 or 14.
Oh, really? No wonder you got a whipping.
Yeah, you got a whipping.
For sure. How old do you think you were when Aunt Annie was tearing up y'all's letters? Yours and Aunt Kat's letters.
Not more than 14 to 15, somewhere in there.
Okay.
Did girls start going with boys and courting when they were
We used to,
that young?
when we'd go to church on Sunday night, why, these boys would come home with us. We had to walk, of course. And we'd go to church, and sometimes the Keys girls would go most of the time with us. They lived up on the hill from us, and they'd go most of the time with us. And so maybe Ed McGinney might come home with me, hold my arm, and walk home with me, and talk and laugh on the way home. And Henry Fowler was courting Catherine, so most of the time it'd be Henry Fowler with her. And so it went on that way until I decided that I wasn't doing it too well in school. I didn't have enough clothes to wear to school. And the teacher we were going to, Miss Lucy Gallion, was, I don't know, she liked some students and some students she didn't like. She didn't have much use for me. Is this taping?
Yeah.
And so I decided that I would go, when school was out and I finished the 8th grade, I decided I would go in nurse's training and be a nurse. And then I could make some money and help my father and mother, and I didn't have marriage in mind at all. Didn't intend to get married anytime soon. So I decided I'd go to the nearest place home, and that was Shreveport. And I went to T.E. Shumpert, S-H-U-M-P-E-R-T. Dr. Shumpert willed that hospital to the Catholic sisters before he died, the T.E. Shumpert Memorial. And I decided to go there, so I wrote an application. They sent me an application right back to fill out and that I could go. And I wasn't quite 17, but I told them I was. I told them I was 17, so that way I got in. And so they called me the little one because I was much smaller and younger than the rest of the student nurses. So I trained a little over a year, and my probation months were up, and the sister told me that I'd have to have some dental work done, about $100 worth of dental work, and I needed about $100 for my uniforms and about $100 for my books. I'd have to get my books and uniforms, and my dental work would have to be done first before they could put me on in the nurses' training school. So I didn't have any money. I told her I didn't have any money to pay for my dental work or any money to get my books or my uniforms. And she says, well, I tell you, little one, you better go. Says, your father and mother both living? I said, yes. And she said, well, you better go home and tell your father and mother that what you need, that we're glad to have you, give you a good training, make a good nurse out of you, but you'll have to get the dental work done and get your books and uniforms. And so tell them you'll need about $300 and to get your dental work done, and then give the money. You can come right back and we'll put you right in with the rest of the class. So I went home and told Mom and Dad, and they said, well, we haven't got any money. We're hardly making a living on the farm. And so I said, well, I wonder if I could get a job. And they said, I worked for a doctor there in his office for about a week, and you know how much he paid me? 50 cents a day for 5 days' work. Mm-hmm. And I knew I couldn't do anything there, so a man by the name of, I can't think of his name now, but he had a sister. Her name was Annie Lee McClung. Mixon, M-I-X-O-N. His name was Jesse Mixon. He was superintendent of the schools in Wynn Parish. And his sister, Jessie Lee Mixon, had graduated and went to college and was teaching school in Terrell, Texas. She married a man there, had a jewelry store, Mr. C.T. McClung. And she taught school a while, and she took TB, and the doctor told her she couldn't live very long, so she better go home so she decided to go home to her mother and father, who lived close to Atlanta, on a farm close to Atlanta, Louisiana. And so she went home, and her brother, Mr. Mixon, came to our house and about the 1st of November and asked my mother if if I could go out and stay with her, help her mother do the work. I wouldn't have to handle her or get close enough to her to be exposed to TB, but help her mother with the work. She was alone and had all the work to do. And at the Mr. McClung had to go back to Terrell to his business, and didn't know how long she'd live, but if I could stay there to have all my dental work done and get me some clothes, but they didn't say anything about the books and uniforms. So I told Mama I'd go, and he says, now she might not live but a week or two, but it don't make any difference if you don't. We'll still have your dental work done and pay for it. So I went with him, bundled up a few clothes in a little trunk, and went with him out to the country to his mother's. And she lived, Miss Ann Lee lived till about the 3rd of January, and she died. And so...
How long was that then that you had been with her?
From 1st of November till the 3rd of January. So they started having my dental work done, taking me to Winfield. There wasn't any dentist there, around there. So they took me to Winfield to Mr. Jesse Mixon's, and his wife, Miss Mixon, was real nice to me, and she'd take me to the dentist, and the dentist went to work and filled my teeth and put in plates and everything, and did all my dental work. But I didn't get but 2 or 3 little gingham dresses, and I didn't get any money. And in June, they asked me if I would stay with them until the 1st of June, because Mr. McClung was coming to visit them then, his vacation taken. So I stayed till the 1st of June, and Mr. McClung wrote and told him that he would be there, and Mr. Mixon went to Atlanta, went to Winfield to meet Mr. McClung. And I saw Jim drive up in a little one-horse wagon to take me home. And I told Miss Mixon that my mother was expecting the Jim says, Mama's expecting the baby and she wants you to come home and help her. So Miss Mixon said, well, I hate for you to go now. Mr. McClung's coming. He'll be here 2 weeks during his vacation. I'll have all the milking to do and everything. Says, I'll need help. And I says, well, I can't stay, Miss Mixon, because I promised just to stay till as long as Miss Ann Lee died and you got my dental work done, and I can't stay long. She says, well, go ahead then. So I went and got in a little wagon, took my clothes and things, and went home. And Mama, I stayed with Mama. Oh, that was the 1st of June, first day of June. And Olie was born the 12th of June, the 12th day after that. And I stayed with Mama and did all the work and everything and helped her, and I stayed with her until the 1st of January. And I told Mama that I just had to go to work at something, do something to get other money to go back in training if I went back in training. So I saw...
Wait just a minute. Stop just a minute. I want you to tell us what a fit Grandma had when she found out she was pregnant with Olie.
Well, Mama didn't want any more children, and when she said she didn't want any more, she had all she wanted. And she cried about it and took it pretty hard. And then when Olie was born, I told her it was a little boy and asked if she wanted to see it. And she says, no, just take it away. I don't even want to see it. And she said, I'm sick of kids. I've had enough of them. And so I stayed with her and washed the diapers and did all the cooking and work and everything. And I told Mama that I had to go somewhere and get a job. So I went to town and I met Tootie McCain. Mr. Johnny McCain was our school teacher for 2 or 3 years, and her father. And Tootie had been working down at the insane asylum in Pineville, Louisiana. And I heard she had been, she'd quit and come home. And I met Tootie on the street, and I told her I wanted to talk to her. And so we went off on the porch of her uncle Johnny McCain's store and talked. And I asked her about Pineville, and she says, oh, you can get on. Says, Uncle Johnny is on one of the board members, and he'll give you a good recommendation. You can get on. Says they pay $25 a month, and you get your room, board, and laundry. It says you have to buy your own uniforms, but you get $25 a month cash, and all your 3 meals a day, and your washing and ironing done, and have a room of your own. But you have to stay with the patients. If whatever work you get, you can work on the wards. You might get domestic work, patient's dining room, or laundry work, whatever you apply for. So I said, she says, you can get on, I'm sure. And says, Uncle Johnny will give you a good recommendation. He's on the board. So I said, well, we go tell him? She says, yes, tell him you're going to put your application in. So we went in, and she told him, says, Uncle Johnny says she's going to put her application in down at Pineville. Says, I'm not going back to work now. Says, I might go back sometime later, but I'm not going back right now. Says, will you give her a recommendation? He said, I sure will. Says, I'll tell Dr. Thomas that she's the best there is. Dr. Thomas was had charge of the hospital. It was an insane asylum, but they called them state hospitals. So I went home and wrote an application, brought it down, mailed it, and just a few days I got a letter from him, told me that I went to be there first day of January, and it happened to be on Monday. So my father took me down to the train early that morning before daylight, and I went down, and I got there just about daylight. And
how old were you?
How old was I then?
Uh-huh.
Well, that was in 1913. I was 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. I was about 18. And 18, I was about 19 then. So well, they assigned me a room and told me I had a patient's dining room, and I was happy about that. And so I went to work in the patient's dining room. One attendant showed me all about everything. And the first paycheck I had to buy some uniforms. I didn't have any uniforms. They were blue and white striped with a white apron and a white cap. And so I bought the uniforms, and I had about $8 or $10 left, and I sent it to my mother in a letter to help her. And so I worked and got along just fine for about 10 months. And the supervisor, Miss Horner, she just didn't like me, and she found fault with my work and began to talk nasty and mean to me. And so I got disheartened and tired of that. So I had a good girlfriend that had gone to Little Rock and just went up there and applied and got right on and went to work up there and liked it a lot better there. So I decided I'd try Little Rock. So I told them you had to give them some, you had to resign, and give them 2 weeks notice before you left. But I didn't want to do that because I was just sick of the way Miss Horner was treating me and everything. So I told the doctor I wanted to go home for a couple of weeks, and he said, you've got a vacation coming the 1st of January, why don't you wait and take your 2 weeks vacation? I said, well, it's homesick and I want to go home. So he said, well, okay. He says, we'll be looking for you back. And I says, how long are you going to stay? And I says, about a week, and I'll take my vacation sometime next year. So I packed up my trunk and pulled out to Little Rock. And when I got to Little Rock, I got right on and went to work. And so I didn't like it, had to work on the ward, and I didn't like it a bit, and I was sorry I didn't stay at Pineville, get my money together and go back to in nurses training. So I worked a little while, and Dr. Adams called and told him that I had gone to work. He had hired me when I didn't resign at Pineville, and so he fired me. So I went home. My folks were living in Winfield then. So I went home, and Mom was sick in bed with pneumonia. Annie was taken care of and everything. Catherine was married, lived in the woods, and had one baby and was expecting another one. So I stopped by to see her, got off the train at that little place where you get off to go to Ebenezer Campground, and went over and saw my sister Catherine, and her husband met me at the train. And so I stayed with her 2 or 3 days, and then he took me up to Winfield to my mother's. I stayed with them. I helped Annie with Mama. She had pneumonia. And they were dissatisfied in Winfield and were going back to Montgomery. So they had just locked up the house and went. They didn't sell it that time. So I told them that I had to go on to work. I was just about out of money, and I had to get another job. And so I was going to put in an application to Texas. I wanted to go to Texas. So I wrote some applications and got a job at Austin, Texas. Got a patient's dining room at Austin, Texas. So I didn't get any other answers there. So I packed up and went to Austin, Texas.
Let me ask you, how long it took Grandma to get used to the fact that she had that baby? How long did it take her before she was...
Quite a while. I'll say, she never did really get where she loved Myra. She said Myra was her little doll, and that was the last one she was ever going to have. When Ole came, that didn't suit her, and
She never did get used to him.
I don't think she
Never
ever
did.
did get to where she was always sorry that she had to have him. I don't understand why, but she loved him. He was her own, but he gave her a lot of trouble. His mind never did seem equal to the rest. And but she treated him good, and he'd give her some trouble with the Duffy boy and other boys around there, and he gave her trouble, but she raised him, and he married a good girl, and they raised 3 children, so 2 boys and a girl.
Oh, he was married twice, wasn't he?
Yeah. Let's see, the girl that, I don't remember the girl's name that he married first.
I don't either. I just knew that he was married, and he told stories about he ran away and joined a carnival and stuff like that, you know, traveling around. That's how he got his nickname, Bo.
Yeah.
And that's all he's ever been to me is Uncle Bo.
I think I was working away from home then, and I don't remember knowing anything much about that. So anyway,